Hey everyone, super intriguing discussion today on the future of mobile engagement with Airship, a true leader and innovator in the space. Tom, how are you?
I'm really great, Evan. Thanks a lot for having me this morning.
Well, thanks for being here. Really intriguing discussion for me, who thinks a lot about consumer experiences and mobility in general. Before that, I have lots of questions, but maybe introduce yourself, Tom, and also a little bit of history of Airship.
Be happy to. I've had basically over 2 decades of experience working with SaaS technology companies in usually new and emerging enterprise classes of software. So everything from open source. Yes, I was like the first chief marketing officer at the company called Red Hat that was really the flag bearer of that open source movement. To product lifecycle management, to customer experience management, to observability and monitoring, and now here at Airship. Throughout the arc of my career, I've never worked for the big dog. I've never worked, for the Microsofts, of the world. But I've always worked for the challenger brand. Red Hat was the classic in that case, and since then. And I would say that Airship is also among that type of company, because we're dealing with very large and well-funded public companies in particular.
Yeah,
So that's
fantastic mission. And what were the aims of Airship back in the day when you first started? What was the goal and how has it evolved?
So Airship has been on the front lines of mobile and been working with mobile apps, for 15 years.
Mm.
So I think we did the first ever push notification that notified you about a gate change or that type of thing. We did
Oh,
the
wow.
first ever mobile wallet, for your boarding pass, use of mobile wallet for your boarding pass. We have continued to innovate at an incredibly rapid rate. And all of it is designed around helping brands tackle the very tough challenge of unifying personalized and relevant experiences for customers, no matter where they are. The app has been proven to be one of the most valuable destinations for customers. And yet, we all interoperate between apps and websites, and we get emails and we get SMS messages and we get push notifications. All of those are creating experiences. And it's really hard to get those right, especially to help unify those across all of those different platforms.
Wow, fascinating mission. And given the scope and the depth of the app economy these days, I can imagine almost anyone could be your customer. But who are your sort of the segments you serve and sort of the main customers that you're solving problems for these days?
Thank you. So we work across a number of industries, like you indicate. But I would say that if I were to focus it down to a handful, it would be industries such as media, retail, travel, finance, and others. And we work with brands like Alaska Airlines, and I
Mm.
would say 70 to 75% of all airlines are our customers.
Wow.
Allstate is a representative brand in financial services. In terms of media, BBC is an example. In terms of retail, Home Depot, it is an example. In terms of sports, for example, the PGA Tour, is an example. And these are the ones that I can talk about publicly. I would just tell you that if you happen to go to a place that serves coffee, that is anywhere in the world, that might be noted as as a customer or a sports brand that is ubiquitous, basically, with athletic performance. We have a lot of great customers.
Amazing. And so as someone who's steeped in technology and marketing, what are some of the bigger challenges do you see marketeers facing in this mobile first world?
It's a really good question. I think there's so much promotion out there right now that's basically saying, you can be a better marketer, and the question is like, I think everybody always like strives for that, right? The reality is that it's hard. There's a lot of, things happening in the industry regarding data, regarding, technologies and permissions, regarding consumer behavior that you have to navigate. And so it's hard. And our job is to help solve those problems. So I'd say one specific challenge is bridging the gap. We actually did the survey of the gap, right, between, call them the marketing and product teams and the engineering and development teams, about doing things in real time that the marketing and product teams knew would improve the experience that we would all have as customers. And yet those teams are reliant on those scarce development resources to actually get things done. I can give you some information on that from the survey. So every week, nearly 3/4 of marketers and mobile product owners think about enhancements, right, to create better onboarding or activation, or to even understand those users. But 48 out of 50, so nearly all of them, rely on developers to actually make those improvements happen. And then when you talk to developers, I would say 40% of the data that we saw of enterprise developers say that the requests from marketing and product teams take about a month or multiple months to actually do, but only 12% of the enterprise marketers say that their requests were implemented. So it's a huge gap, right? It's a huge gap. And despite it all, those really important, critical first experiences that always need improvement, are kind of left on the in the planning cycle versus in the activation, in the actual cycle of getting it done.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And you're on the cutting edge of mobile app development. You work with developers, of course. What do you see on the developer side? Lots of changes in the way apps are being built and deployed, managed, hosted. What say you?
Well, there's constant innovations, right? And I think one of the innovations is around solving the problem I just talked about, which is leveraging native no code capabilities. So in other words, how do we use new technology like native and no code to enable non-technical people to do the stuff that they were reliant on technical people to do? So here's an example. I think it was SiriusXM who said that they were able to activate a significant change in the experience that they wanted to create for their customers in minutes, whereas before it took them months. And if you can operate at the speed of mobile, then you at least have a fighting chance, right, to please your customers.
Well said. Great point. One of the areas that I do some work is in retail. I was at NRF, for example, in your neck of the woods in New York City, the big retail show, and it seems like every retailer has an app. But sadly, the engagement and usage is pretty poor when it comes to a lot of retail apps. There's a lot of winners and a lot of losers. How do you avoid the cycle of disengagement over time that users have with these apps?
Well, I think you have to go back to fundamentals, and the fundamentals are why actually do people gravitate to apps, and why do the brands that get it right see so much value, and the reason is that they tap into the fundamental needs that people have, which are ease of use, simplifying lives, and saving time. Like, so we did a survey of 11,000 mobile consumers, and like those are the top three stand out. And so if convenience is king, and consumers across all age groups agree that that's the main reason, then that's where people should be focused. And
Yeah,
and
well
and that,
said.
and frankly, it's it's important to understand those sort of key criteria, but understand that it has to happen immediately, right? Because there's all of this money that's being spent, by the kind of growth marketers, if you will, the advertisers.
Mm.
The CTA is what, Evan? It's download the app, right? You see it everywhere, every commercial, right? Then what happens, right? So you download the app, and so that team over there, which is usually in a separate, department, has had success of getting people to create, to download the app. But over here, like the app team, product team responsible for that, now has to activate, right? Get people to, to register, and engage them quickly, onboard them properly, so that they understand the features, but not overwhelm them. Ask them questions that can help create a personalized experience, but don't overdo it. Don't ask me for my location when it kind of has nothing to do with what you want. You're starting to get a little creepy by asking too much information. Like, just knowing what those balances are is really important. It's a courtship, right? And understanding it that way will help start that process, often in the right way. And then I think as you move through those like continuous engagement phases in the life cycle, to get ultimately to the loyalty phase, which is like where the real action is, you just need to keep inquiring. It's okay, there's the ability now to literally ask a question like, was this helpful? Did this serve your need? What could we do better? You could do that with these kind of pop-up surveys that are right there in a non-intrusive way. So it creates the level of interaction and feedback loop that become really important, especially because it's direct feedback as opposed to the first party and zero party, data challenges that are all out there.
Interesting. So looking at your website here, you have a tool to assess mobile app maturity, which is kind of interesting. How does it work? What does it tell a brand about their apps? And can anyone just use this?
Yeah. So thanks for pointing that out. So it's a self-assessment tool to help assess your state of maturity. And it's I always say you can't know where you can't know where to go if you don't know where you are. Right. So it's a self-evaluation, and it assesses your competency based on like 6 dimensions, right, across the life cycle, and it provides a report on where you are in each of those dimensions, an aggregated report, your overall score, and then it also helps benchmark you against others in your space. And ultimately, it leads to some simple recommendations, but ideally, you'd want to engage with a team that can help provide further guidance. So, yeah, I think it's a great tool. It's free; anybody can take it. The more people that take it, the more data that's there, the more benchmarking, richness we have for the people who take it. So, yeah, thank you. It's on the website. It's available to anybody. It's the Mobile Maturity Self-Assessment Tool.
Fairly interesting. A lot of work to be done. You gave some great examples of how you're helping customers, for example, in aviation. I mean, I've noticed, despite challenges with the aviation system and airlines, that the app experience with your help and others has gotten really great. I mean, it's what a sea change over the last short number of years. Any other examples of industries or customers where it's really making a difference, like in airline apps?
Yeah, well, just one example in airlines, Southwest is actually, you talk about mobile, doing the first ever like boarding pass in your mobile app. Southwest is doing away with kiosks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like nobody's printing anything. Like, no, you don't need to print.
Right.
Everybody's walking around with a phone, and they're encouraging people to use the app. And then, as a result of having the app, everybody's got their digital, their digital.
Yeah, and I have it on my watch, my Apple Watch, even now, which is fantastic.
Exactly. Exactly. And pretty soon, because we're doing, I think biometric stuff, it'll be imprinted in your eyeballs. But so that's a very clear example of a company that's taking it, further. Some other examples. would be, so in retail, this idea of the melding of sort of physical and digital. I think I hate it when people combine words, but somebody called it the phygital
Oh, please
experience.
no, please
Yeah.
don't.
Okay. The melding of physical and digital, right? And so here again, our survey, tells us that 74% of global consumers say they are likely to use a brand's app when shopping at physical storefronts, and it actually increases. The younger the audience, the more that increases. A great example of that would be Home Depot. So, what's the one problem that most of us who are not, pros, when going, to Home Depot? What's the one problem you have? What would you say?
Finding something, Wayfair, getting around the store, yeah.
100%. So Home Depot has basically, built the app experience to allow people to identify what they want in advance of actually entering the store.
Oh, wow.
And guide them right through geolocation, right to the aisle where that product is, and then help streamline the purchase process as a result of that. And it has become such a big deal for Home Depot that, frankly, their advertising campaign is literally that experience.
That's great.
Yeah, they literally are showing a person who pulls up in a parking lot and then gets out of the car, and then you go into the app, and they're they're identifying what they want in their shopping cart, and then they're being shown directions start, and where to go. It's actually pretty cool, and then all the way through
and really only the tip of the iceberg when you think about AI and spatial computing and augmented reality, which is now all in our iPhones and other devices. Just the possibilities are pretty endless.
Yeah, and another example is, and this is outside the retail industry. It's with South by Southwest. So that big festival, right? So it's there's various forms of the festival. Music was at the heart of it, and Airship's work with Southwest now for over 10 years to help bring their mobile app to life with experiences that help conference goers and festival attendees discover and make the most of all of the different venues, because it's spread out and it's fairly complicated, and it helps people map to where things are and where to go. So that's another example.
Fantastic. So what about Airship? What's new with you? What's next on the radar? Any announcements or roadmap you'd like to call out or highlight?
So I guess that there's maybe three things. The first is that I talked about no code and the importance of it, and being able to empower non-technical people to do the stuff they need to do when they need to do it. So we've continued to enhance those capabilities by extending the ability to do that, not only in the app but outside the app. As people look to create experiences that map to, say, websites, and other channels. The second area is in experimentation. As you know, everybody, especially with AI, there's all kinds of create multiple, variants and test the ones, right? There's that, and for sure. But we've actually created an experimentation hub that is focused on optimizing that challenge I talked about before, which is those cross-channel sort of journeys that enable, I would call them, interactive campaign enhancements before rolling them out. So what it does is it's giving the teams real-time insights from all the tests. And as one company that's taken advantage of that is Burger King France specifically. They've taken the results of these initial experiences to repeat stories, like Instagram stories. We've now created a facility that allow you to do stories, to repeat stories and videos at key moments in the customer journey, right? So that, and then from welcoming, new users to launching new promotions, and that they've been able to, test that, right, and then roll it out with that new capability. So those are some of the new things. We have a lot more. Stay tuned. We have some announcements to be made here in a couple of weeks that I think all of those folks who are struggling a bit to get the most value are I think they'll be excited about what we have to say.
I bet. And what about you personally and the team? Any travel or events or meetings or trips coming up worth mentioning?
Yeah, it's like you. We've had a busy time.
I bet.
We were at CES, we were at NRF, we were at Shop Talk, and in addition to some of our own events, which we call Mobile Leaders Forums. But yeah, we have a number of things coming up. I would say our presence at Cannes will be important. It's an interesting event because you typically have the media companies, the technology companies, the brands, and you get a lot more, I would call, executive level attendance. We just came back from an event that I've found to be very, very valuable. It's in its second year. It's called Possible. You may have heard of it, but it was started up last year. It was the first year, and great follow up this year. Great attendance in Miami. It's almost a little bit like the Cannes Lion event without creative in the U.S. So that's been good. And then we had our customer advisory board tie into that event at the back end of the week, and we brought our global top customers together. Which was really cool. It's because there was a lot really fantastic. Like, we tried to get out of the way of the conversations, that were taking place, and it really just goes to show you that people really are. I mean, we're all, I think, looking for guidance, if you will. Just tips. I asked you about your podcast, and we have our own podcast. Just everybody's looking for a little bit of knowledge, right, and help and support. And what are your experiences like? Oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that, or that's interesting. We had some fantastic conversations, and it was really great to get that perspective from different markets and different industries. I don't think people get it. You tend to get like in your own team, in your own space, right? But
Sure.
Get out of it. It's really good.
Really good. Well, I learned so much just in the last half hour on optimizing mobile app experiences. I had no idea the breadth and depth of opportunities that are out there. Thanks, Tom, for joining us, and we'll be in touch. And thanks, everyone, for watching. Reach out to Airship, check out their various tools, and they put a lot of really educational content out there, which is more than just marketing, which is really helpful. That's how I came across them. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Evan, thank you. Pleasure.
Take care.
Bye-bye.